Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the kind of history that doesn't make it into your high school textbooks. You're waking up in a medieval brothel. Yes, you heard that right. The straw beneath you is damp, the air smells like sweat and spilled ale, and the woman snoring beside you has a black eye and a wicked sense of humor. You're not a noble, not a merchant, not even a peasant with a plot of land. You're a prostitute in the late Middle Ages, and your day is about to begin. You probably won't survive this century, let alone the week. But hey, at least you've got a roof over your head and a few copper coins tucked in your bodice. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing how far this sleepy little history club reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before sunrise, not because you're rested, but because the noise starts early. The brothel is a converted tenement, wedged between a tannery and a fishmonger's stall. The walls are thin, the roof leaks, and the floorboards creak like they're gossiping about you. You stretch, wincing at the ache in your hips, and reach for your shift. Rough linen, patched at the seams, still damp from last night's wash. The madam is already shouting downstairs. She's a former worker herself, now too old for the trade, but sharp as a butcher's cleaver. She's yelling about unpaid debts, missing chamber pots, and someone who snuck out with a client and didn't return. You hope it wasn't Martha. She's got a baby stashed with a wet nurse and dreams of opening a bakery. You liked her. You trudge to the communal basin where the water is cold and slightly green. You splash your face, scrub your arms, and try not to think about the lice. Hygiene is a luxury, but you do what you can. Ash soap, a sprig of mint behind the ear, and a quick check for bruises. One of your ribs is tender. You press it, wince, and move on. Breakfast is stale bread and thin ale. You eat quickly, watching the others. There's Bruna, who swears she once serviced a bishop. There's Else, who can fake tears on command and charges extra for it. And there's you. No title, no lineage, just a name you barely remember and a body that earns your keep. The brothel's layout is simple. A common room with benches and a hearth, a few private chambers, and a back alley for discreet exits. The hearth smells like burnt onions and old wood. Someone's trying to cook porridge, but the fire keeps dying. You offer a twig of dried rosemary, left over from a client who fancied herbal baths, and the pot bubbles to life. Outside, the town is waking up. You hear the clatter of carts, the bleating of goats, and the distant toll of a church bell. It's a market day, which means more foot traffic, more potential clients, and more risk. The constables patrol more aggressively on market days, and the church preaches louder. You'll need to be careful. You check your stash. 3 copper coins, a broken comb, and a scrap of parchment with a crude drawing of a cat. You don't remember who gave it to you, but it makes you smile. You tuck it into your bodice and head downstairs. The madam hands out assignments. You're on alley duty, which means standing near the back entrance, making eye contact with passersby, and offering a wink or a smile. It's humiliating, but it pays. You adjust your bodice, fluff your hair, and step into the morning light. The alley smells like fish guts and horse manure. You lean against the wall, watching the crowd. A merchant glances your way, then looks away. A soldier smirks, but keeps walking. A monk passes, eyes fixed on the ground. You sigh. It's going to be a long day. Historians still argue whether brothels were tolerated or condemned in medieval towns. Some cities licensed them, taxed them, and even assigned guards. Others raided them, burned them, and jailed the workers. Your town is somewhere in between, officially disapproving, unofficially dependent. You spot a familiar face. Tomas, the baker's apprentice. He's young, shy, and always pays in fresh rolls. You nod, and he blushes. He'll come by later, after sunset, when the streets are quieter and the shame easier to swallow. Back inside, the madam is negotiating with a nobleman. He wants discretion, cleanliness, and someone who can recite poetry. You volunteer. You memorized a few lines from a traveling minstrel, something about roses and longing. It's enough. You prepare your chamber. The sheets are clean-ish, the candle is new, and you've hidden the rat trap under the bed. You hum softly, trying to calm your nerves. The nobleman arrives, perfumed and pompous. He talks more than he touches, which is a relief. You recite your poem. He sighs dramatically and leaves a silver coin on the table. You pocket it quickly. Later, you sit by the hearth, counting your earnings. Not bad for a morning. You share a joke with Bruna, who's nursing a bruised ankle. She claims she kicked a knight. You laugh, imagining it. The day winds on. You'll work again tonight, but for now you rest. You lean against the wall, eyes half closed, listening to the crackle of the fire and the murmur of voices. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you're alive. And in this world, that's something.
You're still in the brothel, but now the sun's higher and the air's thick with the scent of sweat, boiled cabbage, and something vaguely floral, probably Bruna's attempt at perfume, made from mashed violets and leftover wine. It's time to get ready for work. And no, you don't get a break between shifts. The brothel runs like a tavern with beds, and you're both the entertainment and the staff. You head to the washroom again, which is really just a corner with a cracked basin and a bucket of water that's been reused too many times. You strip down, shivering as the draft sneaks through the gaps in the wooden walls. You scrub your skin with ash soap, gritty, gray, and slightly caustic. It stings, but it's better than smelling like last night's client. Your hair is a mess. You finger comb it, then braid it tightly to keep lice at bay. A few strands fall loose, framing your face. You pinch your cheeks for color, smear crushed berries on your lips, and dab a bit of mint oil behind your ears. It's not glamour, it's camouflage. You're trying to look healthy, desirable, and just mysterious enough to be worth a coin. Your clothes are laid out on a stool. A faded green kirtle with frayed sleeves, a patched apron, and a pair of soft leather shoes that have seen better days. The green isn't just a fashion choice, it's a signal. In some towns, prostitutes wore specific colors or badges to mark their trade. Green was common, though historians still argue whether it symbolized fertility, envy, or just municipal laziness. You dress quickly, checking for stains and tears. You sew a loose hem with a needle borrowed from Marta, who's currently arguing with the madam over her schedule. You hear snippets, "He said he'd pay double," and "You think I care what he said?" before the door slams and silence returns. You glance in the cracked mirror. Your reflection is tired but defiant. You've learned to hold your chin high, even when your stomach growls and your feet ache. You adjust your bodice, tuck your coins into a hidden pouch, and head downstairs. The common room is buzzing. A few clients linger from the morning, nursing drinks and eyeing the workers. The madam is counting coins, muttering about expenses. You nod to her, and she grunts in return. That's a good sign. No complaints, no punishments. You take your place near the hearth, where the light is flattering and the scent of rosemary masks the worst of the room. You smile at a merchant, wink at a soldier, and ignore the drunk who's already been banned twice. It's a dance, and you know the steps. Bruna joins you, her ankle wrapped in cloth. "She looks like a duchess," she says, smirking. You laugh. "And you smell like a stable," you reply. She grins, then winces. "Worth it." You talk quietly, sharing gossip and tips. There's a new healer in town, supposedly trained in Paris. There's a rumor about a nobleman who pays in gold, and there's a story about a girl who escaped the trade by marrying a traveling bard. You both roll your eyes. That one's been told 100 times. You prepare your room again. Fresh linens, a lit candle, and a sprig of lavender tucked under the pillow. You fluff the mattress, check the lock, and hide your stash. You hum a tune, something you heard from a minstrel last week. It's catchy, and it helps calm your nerves. A knock at the door. It's the madam with a client in tow. He's older, well-dressed, and smells like cloves. You smile, invite him in, and begin the performance. You've learned to read people quickly, what they want, what they fear, what they'll pay for. This one wants tenderness, maybe a bit of flattery. You oblige. Afterward, you clean up, count your coins, and jot a note in your ledger. Yes, you keep one. It's hidden under a loose floorboard, filled with names, dates, and amounts. You're not just surviving. You're tracking, planning, maybe even dreaming. You return to the common room, where Marta is crying softly. You sit beside her, offer a hand, and wait. She sniffles, then whispers, "He didn't pay." You nod. It happens. You share your bread, and she smiles weakly. The day winds down. You'll work again tonight, but for now, you rest. You lean against the wall, watching the fire flicker. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you're still here. And in this world, that's everything. You are back in the brothel's common room, and the mood has shifted. The sun's dipping low, casting long shadows across the warped floorboards. The madam's pacing like a hawk, her coin pouch jingling with every step. It's time to talk business, because in this world, survival isn't just about charm or endurance. It's about money, men, and the woman who controls both. You sit on a bench near the hearth, rubbing your feet and watching the madam haggle with a client. He's drunk, loud, and trying to pay with a half-eaten meat pie. She's not having it. "Unless that pie is stuffed with silver," she snaps, "you're not getting anything but the door." He grumbles, stumbles, and leaves. You smirk. She's ruthless, but fair. Most days. Your turn comes. You approach her with your earnings, 3 copper coins and a silver piece. She inspects them like they might bite her. "Who gave you silver?" she asks. You mention the merchant from earlier, the one who smelled like cloves and talked about trade routes. She nods, impressed. "Keep half," she says. "The rest goes to the house." You don't argue. The brothel takes a cut of everything: room, food, protection, even the candles. It's a racket, but it's safer than the streets. You've heard stories of girls working alleyways alone, robbed, beaten, or worse. Here, at least, there's a system. A crooked one, sure, but it's something. You pocket your share and glance at the ledger. The madam keeps one too, thick, parchment, ink-stained, filled with names and numbers. You wonder if your name's in there. Probably. Maybe with a note, "Good with nobles, bad with drunks, pays on time." You return to your spot by the hearth, where Bruna is playing dice with a client. He's losing badly, and she's grinning like a fox. "Double or nothing," she says, and he nods, already regretting it. You watch, amused. Gambling's not officially allowed, but the madam turns a blind eye if the coins keep flowing. A new client enters, young, nervous, clutching a pouch. He scans the room, spots you, and approaches. "How much?" he whispers. You smile gently. "Depends what you want." He stammers, blushes, and finally says, "Just company." You nod. That's common. Loneliness is a powerful currency. You lead him to your chamber, offer him a seat, and pour a bit of watered wine. He talks about his apprenticeship, his strict master, and his dreams of becoming a scribe. You listen, nodding, occasionally offering a soft joke. He laughs, relaxes, and leaves a generous tip. You tuck it away, grateful. Back in the common room, the madam's arguing with a supplier. The candles are too short, the ale too weak, and the bread too moldy. She threatens to switch vendors. He scoffs. "Where else you gonna go?" She doesn't answer, just glares. He leaves, muttering. You chat with Marta, who's stitching a tear in her apron. "He said he'd bring me a necklace," she says, eyes dreamy. You raise an eyebrow. "Did he also promise a castle?" She laughs. "No, just a bakery." You smile. Hope is dangerous, but necessary. Historians still argue whether brothel economics empowered or exploited women. Some claim it offered autonomy, a rare chance to earn and save. Others say it was just another trap, dressed in lace and lies. You think it's both. You've seen girls rise, and you've seen them fall. You check your stash again. 5 copper coins, 1 silver, and a button shaped like a flower. You don't remember where it came from, but it's pretty. You keep it. The madam calls for a meeting. Everyone gathers. Bruna, Marta, Else, and the rest. She announces new rules. No freebies, no late payments, and no clients without coin in hand. Someone groans. She glares. "This isn't a charity," she says. "It's a business." You nod. You get it. Every candle, every crust of bread, every patch of linen costs something. And in this world, nothing's free. Not even kindness. The meeting ends and the room disperses. You linger, watching the fire. It crackles softly, casting flickering shadows on the walls. You think about the merchant, the apprentice, the madam, and the coins in your pouch. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you're learning. You're surviving. You're adapting. And in this world, that's power.
You're standing in front of the cracked mirror again, adjusting your kirtle and wondering if the green has faded too much to still mean what it's supposed to. In this town, color is code. Green says you're available, for a price. Red means you're under protection, usually by a noble or a guild. Blue, that's for the church girls, the ones who sing hymns and pretend not to see you. You tug the neckline a little lower, subtle but effective. Your clothes aren't just fabric, they're armor. The kirtles patched at the elbows, the aprons stained with wine and wax, and your shoes have been resoled with bits of old leather. But each piece tells a story. The apron says you work, the bodice says you sell, and the shoes say you walk a lot, sometimes away from trouble, sometimes straight into it. You step outside, into the narrow alley that leads to the market square. The cobblestones are slick with morning dew, and the air smells like fish, smoke, and ambition. You pass a group of washerwomen gossiping about a knight who lost his purse in a dice game. One of them eyes your dress and snorts. You smile sweetly and keep walking. In the square, the hierarchy is on full display. Nobles in velvet cloaks glide past like swans, merchants bark prices over barrels of salted meat, and peasants haggle for turnips. You stand near a stall selling ribbons, pretending to browse. It's a good spot, close enough to the tavern for traffic, far enough from the constables to avoid trouble. A nobleman passes, his gaze flicking toward you and then away. He's pretending not to see you, which means he probably will later. That's the game. Public denial, private indulgence. You've seen it 100 times. He'll come by after sunset, ask for discretion, and leave a coin pouch under the pillow. You adjust your braid, letting a few strands fall loose. It softens your face, makes you look younger. You dab a bit of mint oil on your wrists and smile at a passing soldier. He nods, then keeps walking. You recognize him. He came by last week, paid in silver, and cried afterward. You didn't ask why. Back at the brothel, the madame is inspecting everyone's outfits. She's strict about presentation. "You're not selling yourself, you're selling a fantasy," she says. You nod, even though you know the fantasy is threadbare and smells like cabbage. Bruna's wearing a red ribbon today. She claims it's from a nobleman who's fond of her company. Marta's in blue, which raises eyebrows. "Trying to pass as a choir girl?" someone jokes. She shrugs. "Maybe I'll sing for my supper." You head to your chamber to change. You've got a second kirtle, slightly nicer, with embroidered cuffs. You save it for special clients, the ones who pay in gold or bring gifts. You lay it out, brush off the dust, and check for moth holes. It's still good. You hear a knock. It's Else, holding a bundle of fabric. "Trade?" she asks. You examine the bundle, a shawl, slightly frayed but warm. You offer her a pair of stockings in return. She nods. Barter is common here. Coins are nice, but goods are safer. You can't eat copper. Historians still argue whether prostitutes in medieval towns had any real autonomy. Some point to dress codes and guilds as signs of regulation and agency. Others say it was just another form of control, wrapped in velvet and hypocrisy. You think it's both. You choose what to wear, but only from what's allowed. You finish dressing, pin a brooch to your bodice,
and head downstairs. The common room is busy. A minstrel is playing a lute, badly. A client is snoring in the corner. The madame is counting coins again. You take your place by the hearth, adjusting your posture to look inviting, but not desperate. A merchant enters, smelling of spices and sweat. He eyes you, then gestures. You follow him to your chamber, noting his fine boots and nervous hands. He wants conversation first, about trade routes, weather, and the price of saffron. You nod, smile, and occasionally ask a question. He relaxes. Afterward, he leaves a pouch of coins and a small vial of perfume. You sniff it. Rosewater, sharp and sweet. You tuck it away, grateful. Scents matter here. They linger, they signal, they soothe. You return to the common room where Bruno's showing off a necklace. She claims it's real silver. You squint. Real tin, you reply. She laughs. Still shiny. The day winds down. You change back into your green kirtle, fold the embroidered one carefully, and hide it under your mattress. You sit by the fire, sipping watered wine and watching the flames dance. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you're dressed for survival. And in this world, that's style. You're sitting on the edge of your straw mattress, braiding your hair again. This time, tighter, because tonight might get rough. The brothel's common room is louder than usual, and that's never a good sign. The madam's pacing, Bruna's sharpening a hairpin, and Marta's crying quietly into her apron. You sigh. It's going to be one of those nights. You head downstairs, where the air is thick with tension and tallow smoke. The hearth crackles, casting flickering shadows on the walls. You take your usual spot near the fire, trying to look relaxed. It's part of the act. You're not just selling your body, you're selling calm, control, and the illusion that you're not afraid. Else joins you, her eyes rimmed with kohl and her smile just a little too wide. "He's back," she whispers. You know who she means. The knight with the scar and the temper. He pays well, but he's unpredictable. Last time he threw a stool. The madam banned him for a week. Apparently, that week's up. You glance around. The room's full. Merchants, soldiers, a few nobles pretending they're not here. You spot Thomas, the baker's apprentice, sitting awkwardly near the door. He waves. You smile. He's harmless, sweet, and always brings bread. You hope he stays. Bruna is arguing with Marta over a client. "He asked for me," she insists. "He asked for someone quiet," Marta replies. You step between them. "Flip a coin," you suggest. They do. Marta wins. Bruna sulks. You offer her a piece of dried apple. She takes it, grudgingly. You head to your chamber to prepare. The sheets are clean-ish, the candles new, and you've placed the rosewater vial on the table. It's a small touch, but it helps. You fluff the pillow, adjust the blanket, and hide your stash under the mattress. A knock. It's the madam, with a client in tow. He's young, nervous, and dressed like he borrowed someone else's clothes. You smile, invite him in, and begin the routine. He wants conversation, reassurance, and a bit of hand-holding. You oblige. He leaves a copper coin and a thank you. You tuck both away. Back in the common room, the knight has arrived. He's loud, drunk, and already demanding attention. The madam's trying to calm him, Bruna is glaring. You stay out of it. You've learned when to engage and when to disappear. You slip into the kitchen where the cook is stirring a pot of stew. It smells like onions and regret. You ask for a bowl. He grunts and hands you one. You eat quickly, savoring the warmth. It's not good, but it's filling. You return to the common room, where the knight is now arm-wrestling a merchant. Coins are flying, laughter is forced, and the tension is rising. You sit beside Marta, who's still sniffling. "He said I was ugly," she whispers. You shake your head. "He's blind." She smiles weakly. Historians still argue whether brothel friendships were genuine or strategic. Some say women bonded deeply, sharing trauma and support. Others claim it was all competition and survival. You think it's both. You've cried with these women, but you've also fought them over clients. You hear a crash. The knights overturned a table. The madams shouting. Bruna is standing, fists clenched. You step back, ready to run. But then the constable arrives, tall, stern, and surprisingly gentle. He escorts the knight out, muttering about fines and bans. The room exhales. You help clean up, stacking chairs, sweeping shards, and calming nerves. The madam nods at you. She says, "Good instincts." You smile. It's the closest thing to praise you'll get. Later, you sit by the hearth, sipping watered wine and watching the flames. Tomas approaches, hands you a roll, and sits beside you. "You okay?" he asks. You nod. "Just another night." He hesitates, then says, "You deserve better." You laugh softly. "So do you." He leaves, and you head to your chamber. You undress, wash with cold water, and lie down. The straw pokes your back, the blanket smells like lavender and sweat, and the candle flickers gently. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've made it through another night. And in this world, that's victory.
You're lighting a tallow candle, the flames sputtering as it catches, casting a warm but greasy glow across your chamber. Night has fallen, and the brothel is shifting into its most profitable hours. The air thickens with perfume, pipe smoke, and anticipation. You smooth the sheets, adjust the pillow, and check the lock on the door, not because it works well, but because it makes you feel like you have control. Downstairs, the common room is buzzing. The madam's posted herself near the entrance, greeting clients with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She's dressed in her best. Dark velvet, a silver brooch, and a dagger tucked discreetly into her bodice. You've seen her use it once. You don't ask questions. You take your place near the hearth, where the lighting flatters your face and the scent of rosemary masks the sweat. You've learned how to sit. Legs crossed just so, shoulders relaxed, eyes half-lidded. It's a performance, and you're good at it. You scan the room, noting who's new, who's drunk, and who's dangerous. A merchant approaches, his cloak heavy with embroidery and his fingers stained with ink. "You look like you read poetry," he says. You smile. "Only the tragic kind?" He laughs, then gestures toward your chamber. You lead him in, noting the way he walks, confident but tired. Inside, he talks first, about trade routes, taxes, and a rival who tried to poison his wine. You nod, offer a drink, and listen. He wants comfort, not passion. You oblige. He leaves a silver coin and a small pouch of saffron. You tuck both away, grateful. Back in the common room, Bruna's entertaining a group of soldiers. She's telling a story about a bishop who mistook her for a nun. They're laughing, passing coins, and drinking heavily. You catch her eye. She winks. You smile. Marta's with a client who looks like he hasn't bathed in a week. She's holding her breath and counting the minutes. You slip her a sprig of lavender afterward. She nods, eyes watering. Else is arguing with a nobleman. He wants a discount. She wants respect. The madam intervenes, smooths things over, and sends him to you. You brace yourself. He's demanding, critical, and obsessed with control. You play along, keeping your tones soft and your movements slow. He leaves without tipping. You sigh, wash up, and return to the hearth. Historians still argue whether negotiation was a skill or a necessity in medieval brothels. Some say women developed complex strategies to manage clients. Others claim they had no choice but to endure. You think it's both. You've learned how to read a room, how to steer a conversation, and how to exit gracefully. You take a break, sitting in the kitchen with a bowl of stew. The cook grunts at you, then hands over a piece of bread. You eat slowly, savoring the quiet. The candle flickers, the fire crackles, and for a moment it feels almost peaceful. Then the door bangs open. A new client, loud and drunk, demanding attention. The madam assigns him to Bruna. She groans, then squares her shoulders. You offer her a ribbon for luck. She ties it around her wrist and heads upstairs. You return to your chamber, light a fresh candle, and tidy the space. You hum a tune, something soft and familiar. You check your stash. 2 silver coins, 7 copper, a pouch of saffron, and a ribbon. Not bad. You hear footsteps. Another knock. You open the door to find Tomas, holding a loaf of bread and a small bouquet of wild flowers. For you, he says. You smile, invite him in, and sit together. He talks about baking, about dreams, about leaving town someday. You listen, heart aching. He leaves and you lie down. The straw mattress creaks, the candle flickers, and the scent of lavender lingers. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've negotiated your way through another night. And in this world, that's grace.
You're lying on your back, staring at the ceiling beams, counting the cracks, and wondering if that one near the corner is growing mold. The candles burned low, casting a soft halo around the room. You've just finished with a client, older, polite, paid in advance, a rare treat, but your body still aches, and your mind is buzzing with everything you've had to pretend. You sit up slowly, wincing as your muscles protest. You reach for the basin and splash cold water on your face. It stings, but it helps. You grab a cloth, wipe down your arms, your legs, and the places that feel least like yours right now. You hum softly, a lullaby your mother used to sing, if that memory's even real. Sometimes you wonder if you've invented half your past just to make the present bearable. You change into your night shift, a looser gown, easier to move in, harder to tear. You check the lock again, then the stash under your mattress. Still there. Coins, saffron, ribbon, and now a small carved wooden cat. Tomas left it. You smile, just a little. Downstairs, the brothel is quieter. The drunkest clients have passed out or stumbled home. The madam's counting coins again, her fingers moving like a spider over silk. You join her, hand over your earnings. She nods, satisfied. "You're steady," she says. "That's rare." You nod. Compliments are currency too. You sit by the hearth, where the fire's low and the air smells like wax and wine. Bruna's nursing a bruise on her shoulder. "She got rough," she says. "Didn't even apologize." You offer her a bit of mint oil. She dabs it on, sighs. "Thanks."
Marta's asleep in the corner, curled up like a cat. Els is stitching a tear in her gown. You all move slowly now, like dancers after the music stops. The performance is over, but the exhaustion lingers. You head back to your chamber, where the candle's nearly out. You lie down, staring at the ceiling again. You think about the act, the smiles, the flattery, the pretending. You think about the moments that felt real. Tomas's flowers, Bruna's wink, Marta's laugh. Historians still argue whether medieval prostitutes felt empowered by their work or trapped by it. Some point to records of women buying property, managing finances, even retiring comfortably. Others cite the violence, the stigma, the lack of choice. You think it's both. You felt strong and you felt broken, sometimes in the same hour. You remember a client from last week, a scholar, quiet, curious. He asked about your dreams. You told him you wanted to own a tavern. He smiled, said you'd be good at it. You believed him for a moment. You drift off, then wake to another knock. You groan, sit up, and open the door. It's a soldier, young, nervous, clutching a pouch. "I heard you're kind," he says. You nod, invite him in. He wants to talk, to be held, to forget the battlefield. You oblige. Afterward, he leaves a copper coin and a small wooden token. You add it to your stash, then lie back down. The candle's out now, and the room is dark. You listen to the sounds of the brothel, footsteps, whispers, the occasional laugh. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've endured. And in this world, that's strength.
You wake to the sound of coughing, wet, rattling, and far too close. It's Bruna, hunched over a basin, spitting into a cloth. You sit up, heart thudding. Illness spreads fast here, and you've seen what happens when it takes hold. The madam's already moving, barking orders for fresh water, clean linens, and someone to fetch the healer. You slip out of bed, wrap a shawl around your shoulders, and head to the kitchen. The cook's boiling water, muttering about bad air and rotten lungs. You grab a handful of herbs from the shelf, pennyroyal, mugwort, and thyme, and start grinding them with a pestle. You're no apothecary, but you've learned a few tricks. You have to. You mix the herbs with warm wine and carry the cup to Bruna. She takes it, hands trembling. "Thanks," she whispers. You nod, sit beside her, and press a cool cloth to her forehead. Her skin's hot, her breath shallow. You've seen this before. Sometimes they recover, sometimes they don't. You head to your chamber and check your stash. You've got a few coins, some saffron, a ribbon, and the wooden cat. You add a sprig of mint and a scrap of linen soaked in vinegar. It's your emergency kit, your version of armor. The healer arrives, an old woman with a crooked back and a sharp tongue. She examines Bruna, mutters about humors and imbalances, then mixes a poultice from garlic, honey, and crushed rose petals. She'll need rest, she says, and no clients. The madam nods, reluctantly. You offer to take Bruna's shift. The madam agrees. You change into your green kirtle, braid your hair, and dab mint oil behind your ears. You're tired, but you push through. That's the rule here. No one stops unless they're dead. Downstairs, the mood is tense. Clients are whispering about plague, about bad omens, about the church's warnings. You smile, reassure, and pretend everything's fine. You've learned how to lie with your eyes. A merchant asks for a bath. You heat water, mix herbs, and scrub the tub. He pays extra for lavender. You oblige, then sit nearby while he soaks. He talks about trade, about his wife, about his fears. You listen, nod, and occasionally offer a joke. He laughs, relaxes, and leaves a silver coin. You return to the common room where Marta's reading a scrap of parchment. It's a prayer. For healing, she says. You smile. Worth a try. She recites it softly, eyes closed. You join in, just in case. Els is making a salve from beeswax and chamomile. For Bruna, she says, and maybe for me. You help her stir, then fill a small jar. You tuck one into your stash, just in case. Historians still argue whether medieval medicine was superstition or science. Some point to herbal remedies and surgical techniques. Others cite bloodletting, astrology, and leeches. You think it's both. You've seen miracles and madness, sometimes in the same poultice. You check on Bruna again. She's sleeping, breathing easier. You sit beside her, holding her hand. You'll be okay, you whisper. She doesn't respond, but her grip tightens. Later, you return to your chamber, light a candle, and wash with vinegar. It stings, but it's worth it. You lie down, listening to the sounds of the brothel, footsteps, whispers, coughing. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you found hope in herbs and friendship. And in this world, that's healing. You're sitting near the brothel's back entrance, watching the street for trouble. The morning light is soft, but the tension is sharp. A constable passed by earlier, eyeing the building like it owed him something. You've learned to recognize that look. It means someone complained, or someone powerful wants to make a point. You adjust your shawl and try to look invisible. Inside, the madam is pacing. She's heard rumors, a sermon condemning houses of sin, a magistrate threatening fines, a bishop calling for moral cleansing. You've seen this cycle before. The church preaches, the town panics, and the brothel pays, either in coin or in blood. You head to the kitchen, where Marta's boiling water and muttering prayers. They say confession can save you, she says. You raise an eyebrow. From what? She shrugs. Hell, shame, the constables. You laugh softly. That's a lot of saving. You've been to confession before. Once, maybe twice. You knelt, whispered your sins, and waited for absolution. The priest was kind, but distant. He told you to pray, to repent, to find honest work. You nodded, left, and returned to the brothel. Honest work doesn't pay for bread. You change into your green kirtle, braid your hair, and dab mint oil behind your ears. You're scheduled for the midday shift, and the madam wants everyone looking respectable. You adjust your bodice, smooth your apron, and head downstairs. The common room is quiet. A few clients linger, sipping ale and pretending they're not here. You recognize one, a clerk from the bishop's office. He avoids eye contact, pays in silver, and always asks for silence. You oblige, but you remember. Bruna's feeling better, sipping broth and reading a scrap of parchment. It's a sermon, she says, about sin and salvation. You glance at it. The words are harsh, the tone unforgiving. They don't know us, you say. She nods. They don't want to. Else is sewing a new gown, blue, modest, with long sleeves. For church, she says, just in case. You help her hem it, fingers moving quickly. You've learned to sew out of necessity, not artistry.
You hear the church bell toll. It's loud, insistent, and vaguely threatening. You glance at the window, where a procession is passing, priests, acolytes, and townsfolk. Some glance at the brothel. Most look away. One throws a stone. It hits the wall and rolls into the alley. The madam doesn't flinch. They'll calm down, she says. They always do. You nod, but you're not sure. The mood feels different this time. Sharper, colder, more righteous. Historians still argue whether the church's stance on prostitution was moral or political. Some say it was about saving souls. Others claim it was about control, power, and public image. You think it's both. You've seen priests visit at night and preach at dawn. You head to the chapel later, dressed in your blue gown, hair covered, eyes downcast. You kneel, whisper a prayer, and light a candle. You ask for protection, for peace, for Bruna's recovery. You don't expect miracles, but the quiet helps. The priest nods at you, then looks away. You leave quickly, head back to the brothel, and change into your work clothes. The madam hands you a list of clients. You sigh, tuck it into your bodice, and prepare your chamber. You light a candle, fluff the pillow, and place a sprig of lavender on the table. You hum softly, trying to calm your nerves. The door creaks open. A client enters, young, nervous, clutching a rosary. You smile gently. You're safe here, you say. He nods, eyes wide. Afterward, he leaves a copper coin and a whispered thank you. You tuck both away and sit by the hearth. The fire crackles, the shadows dance, and the tension lingers. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've navigated judgment and survived. And in this world, that's wisdom.
You're staring at the ceiling again, but this time your mind isn't on the cracks or the mold. It's drifting far beyond the brothel, beyond the town, beyond the life you've stitched together from scraps and survival. You're dreaming, not sleeping, not yet, just dreaming. You imagine a cottage near the woods with a garden full of herbs and a cat that doesn't bite. You picture a bakery, warm and bustling, with Marta at the counter and Bruna rolling dough. You see yourself pouring tea, laughing, wearing something soft and clean. It's a fragile fantasy, but it's yours. You sit up, reach for your stash, and pull out the wooden cat Tomas carved. You trace its edges, smiling. He said it was lucky. You're not sure you believe in luck, but you believe in kindness. That's rarer. Downstairs, the brothel is quiet. The madam's asleep, the hearth is low, and the air smells like wax and wine. You tiptoe past the common room, out into the alley. The moon is high, the stars are sharp, and the town is hushed. You walk slowly, savoring the silence. You pass the chapel, the market square, and the baker's shop. You pause, imagining Tomas inside, kneading dough, humming. You smile, then keep walking. You reach the edge of town where the trees begin. You don't go further, not yet, just enough to feel the breeze. You return before dawn, slipping back into your chamber. You lie down, heart lighter, dreams intact. You drift off, finally sleeping.
Later, you wake to the sound of laughter. Bruna's feeling better. Marta's baking something with stolen flour, and Els is singing. You join them, smiling. For a moment, it feels like a home. You talk about escape. Marta wants a bakery. Bruna dreams of a tavern. Els wants to join a traveling troupe. You nod, share your own dream, a cottage, herbs, and peace. They laugh, but gently. Maybe someday, Bruna says. Historians still argue whether prostitutes ever truly escaped the trade. Some records show women marrying, joining convents, or starting businesses. Others suggest most died young, forgotten. You think it's both. You've seen hope and you've seen heartbreak. You prepare for the day. Green curdle, mint oil, braided hair. You take your place by the hearth, smile at a client, and begin again. But the dream lingers, tucked behind your eyes like a secret. A merchant asks for a story. You tell him about a girl who ran away and opened a bakery. He smiles, pays extra, and leaves a pouch of cinnamon. You add it to your stash. You sit by the fire, sipping watered wine and watching the flames. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've dreamed. And in this world, that's rebellion.
You're no longer in the brothel. You've slipped into another world entirely, one that smells of rosewater, sandalwood, and ambition. You're in ancient Persia now, standing in a perfumer's workshop, surrounded by copper stills, glass flasks, and bundles of dried petals. The air is warm, heavy, and intoxicating. You inhale deeply, and it feels like breathing in memory. The man before you is an attar, a master of scent, part scientist, part mystic. He's grinding cloves with a mortar carved from alabaster, whispering prayers as he works. Fragrance, he says, is the soul's echo. You nod, not entirely sure what that means, but it sounds profound. He hands you a vial of jasmine oil. You dab it on your wrist, and the scent blooms, sweet, sharp, and strangely familiar. This, he says, is diplomacy. You raise an eyebrow. He smiles. We send it to kings, to lovers, to enemies. It speaks before words. You wander the workshop, marveling at the tools. There's a copper alembic, coiled like a serpent, used for distillation. There are shelves of scrolls filled with recipes and rituals. There's a basin of rose petals soaking in water that glows faintly in the candlelight. The attar explains that perfume in Persia isn't just decoration, it's identity. It marks status, signals intent, and connects the earthly to the divine. You listen, fascinated. In your old world, scent was survival. Here, it's power. He tells you about the royal court, where nobles wear perfumes like armor. One drop of ambergris, and you're untouchable. One whiff of myrrh, and you're irresistible. Historians still argue whether these scents were truly magical or just well marketed. You think it's both. You watch as he prepares a blend, rose, cinnamon, and a hint of musk. He heats it gently, then pours it into a glass vial. For a bride, she'll wear it on her wedding night. You imagine her, nervous, radiant, perfumed like a garden in bloom.
He shows you a scroll written in elegant script. It's a poem describing the scent of paradise. You read it aloud, the words flowing like silk. He nods, pleased. You have a good voice, he says. You should stay. You smile, tempted. You help him sort petals, damask rose, Persian lilac, saffron crocus. Each has a story, a purpose, a mood. You learn to mix by feel, by instinct, by memory. You're not just making perfume, you're crafting emotion. He tells you about Avicenna, the polymath who revolutionized perfumery with steam distillation. He says, before him, we boiled. After him, we soared. You nod, imagining the moment rosewater first dripped from a coil, pure and potent. You ask about scent and spirituality. He explains that certain fragrances are used in prayer, in mourning, in celebration. Frankincense for clarity, he says. Cedar for strength. Jasmine for joy. You inhale deeply, feeling all three. You spend the day learning, mixing, inhaling. You forget the brothel, the bruises, the coins. You're surrounded by beauty, by purpose, by history. You feel whole.
As night falls, the Attar lights a lamp and hands you a vial. He says, "For you, to remember." You tuck it into your pouch, heart full. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've discovered scent as story. And in this world, that's magic.
You're still in ancient Persia, but now the workshop has grown quiet. The Attar has stepped aside, and in his place stands a figure cloaked in scholarly robes, eyes bright with curiosity and intellect. It's Avicenna. Yes, that Avicenna. Physician, philosopher, and the man who changed perfumery forever. You're watching him work, and it feels like witnessing the birth of modern chemistry. He's adjusting a copper coil, carefully positioning it over a flame. A flask of rose petals simmers nearby, and a second vessel waits to catch the vapor. "Watch," he says, voice calm but electric. "This is steam distillation." You lean in, eyes wide. The petals begin to release their essence, carried by steam through the coil. It condenses, drips, and collects, clear, fragrant, and potent. "Before this," he says, "we boiled, we lost the soul of the flower. Now we preserve it." You nod, mesmerized. It's like alchemy, but real. He hands you the vial. You sniff. It's rose water, but sharper, cleaner, more alive. "This," he says, "is the future." You believe him. You spend the day learning the process: heat, vapor, condensation, collection. It's precise, delicate, and oddly soothing. You feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. You're not just making perfume, you're distilling memory, emotion, and identity. Avicenna explains that this method isn't just for scent. It's used in medicine, in cooking, in rituals. Steam, he says, is the breath of transformation. You smile. That sounds like poetry. He shows you his notes, dense, elegant, filled with diagrams and equations. You don't understand all of it, but you recognize the passion. Historians still argue whether Avicenna's work was purely scientific or deeply spiritual. You think it's both. You've seen how scent can heal, seduce, and sanctify.
You help him prepare a batch of lavender oil. The scent fills the room, calming and clear. He adds a drop to a salve meant for a wounded soldier. "Fragrance," he says, "is medicine." You nod, remembering Bruna's bruises, Marta's tears, your own aches. He tells you about the royal gardens, where flowers are grown not just for beauty, but for purpose. Roses for diplomacy, lilies for mourning, violets for love. You imagine walking through those gardens, inhaling history. You ask about his philosophy. He smiles. "Everything is connected," he says. "Body, mind, scent, soul." You believe him. You've felt it. You mix your own blend, jasmine, mint, and a hint of cinnamon. It's bold, unexpected,
and strangely comforting. You bottle it, label it, and tuck it into your pouch, a piece of yourself, distilled. As night falls, Avicenna lights a lamp and offers you a scroll for study and for dreaming. You take it, heart full. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've learned to transform pain into perfume. And in this world, that's genius.
You're no longer in the perfumed calm of Persia. The air now smells of smoke, blood, and wet earth. You're in Kievan Rus, and you're Princess Olga, widow, ruler, and vengeance incarnate. You stand atop a wooden fortress, eyes cold, heart colder. Your husband has been murdered by the Drevlians, and they've sent emissaries to propose you marry their prince. You smile sweetly, then order the emissaries buried alive. You're not here to mourn, you're here to rule. The next delegation arrives. You greet them with wine, warmth, and a bathhouse. Then you lock the doors and burn it down. Historians still argue whether Olga's vengeance was strategic or sadistic. You think it's both. You've lost a husband, gained a throne, and you're not about to lose either again. You ride out with your army, torching Drevlian towns, salting fields, and executing leaders. You're methodical, relentless, and terrifying. The people whisper your name like a curse and a prayer. You don't flinch. But beneath the fury, something shifts. You begin to seek diplomacy. You send envoys to Constantinople, negotiate with emperors, and study their customs. You're fascinated by their faith, Eastern Orthodox Christianity, with its incense, icons, and imperial grandeur. You attend services, ask questions, and begin to convert. You're baptized in Byzantium, taking the name Helena. The emperor is impressed. He proposes marriage. You decline. I am already married to my people. He laughs, but you mean it. Back in Kiev, you begin reforms. You build churches, invite priests, and promote literacy. You're planting seeds, not just of faith, but of empire. You know your son won't follow your path, but you hope your grandson will. You're remembered as both a butcher and a saint. The church canonizes you. The people fear you. Historians still debate whether your conversion was genuine or political. You think it was both. You've seen the power of faith and the power of fire. You sit in your chamber, surrounded by scrolls, icons, and maps. You're planning, always planning. You dream of a united Rus, strong and sacred. You know it won't happen in your lifetime, but you've laid the foundation. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've turned grief into governance. And in this world, that's legacy.
You're standing on the banks of the Dnieper River, the water cold and fast, the crowd restless. You're Prince Vladimir now, grandson of Olga, warlord turned ruler, and about to make the most calculated decision of your life. You're going to baptize an entire nation. But let's rewind a bit. You didn't start as a saint.
You started as a pagan prince with a harem that could fill a monastery and a thirst for power that rivaled your appetite for mead. You fought your brothers for the throne, took Kiev by force, and ruled with iron and indulgence. You worshipped Perun, the thunder god, and sacrificed animals, and, occasionally, people, to keep him happy. Then came the turning point. You wanted legitimacy, empire, respect from Byzantium and beyond. And you knew religion was the key. Islam was too restrictive. No wine? Hard pass. Judaism lacked a homeland. Western Christianity came with papal strings. But Eastern Orthodoxy? That had grandeur, gold, and imperial flair. You were sold. You sent envoys to study faiths. They returned with glowing reviews of Constantinople's churches. We didn't know if we were in heaven or on earth, they said. You liked that. You negotiated with the Byzantine emperor, agreed to convert, and even married his sister. Strategic romance at its finest. Now you're here, at the river, ordering your people to strip and wade in. Some are confused. Some are terrified. Most are just cold. But they obey. You've outlawed paganism, destroyed idols, and built churches. This baptism is the final seal. You step into the water, surrounded by priests chanting in Greek. The river swirls around you, and you feel something. Historians still argue whether your conversion was sincere or purely political. You think it was both. You've seen what faith can do, for unity, for control, for legacy. You return to Kiev and begin the transformation. You build cathedrals, import clergy, and rewrite laws. You promote literacy, codify justice, and reshape culture. You're not just a ruler, you're a reformer. But it's not all smooth. Pagan resistance simmers, old rituals persist. You compromise, blending traditions. You allow festivals, rename gods as saints, and let the people keep their bonfires, just with crosses nearby. You sit in your palace, surrounded by icons and advisors. You're planning, always planning. You dream of a ruse that rivals Byzantium, that commands respect, that endures. You know you've started something monumental. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've baptized a nation. And in this world, that's empire.
You're walking through the streets of Kiev, and everything feels different. The idols are gone, replaced by icons. The chants are no longer to Perun, but to Christ. The festivals still happen, but now they're wrapped in crosses and candles. You're witnessing syncretism in action, the blending of old and new, pagan and Christian, fire and faith. You pass a group of villagers celebrating Cupola night. They're jumping over bonfires, weaving flower crowns, and whispering love spells. But now there's a priest nearby, blessing the flames and quoting scripture. You smile. It's not erasure, it's adaptation. You enter a church built on the ruins of a pagan temple. The walls are adorned with frescoes, the air thick with incense. A choir sings in Old Church Slavonic, and the congregation bows deeply. You recognize the gestures, some borrowed from old rituals, others newly taught.
It's a fusion, a negotiation, a survival strategy. You sit beside a woman who used to be a priestess. She now leads prayers, lights candles, and teaches hymns. It's the same spirit, just a different name. You nod. Historians still argue whether the Christianization of Rus was a true conversion or a political costume. You think it's both. You've seen the sincerity and the strategy. You walk through the palace, where Prince Vladimir's advisors debate theology and trade routes. The church and state are now partners, symbiotic, strategic, inseparable. The clergy bless the laws, and the rulers fund the cathedrals. It's a dance, and everyone knows the steps. You pass a statue of Olga, now Saint Olga, holding a cross and a scroll. She's remembered as both a butcher and a beacon. You pause, wondering how history will remember you. You visit a school where children learn to read scripture and recite prayers. You hear echoes of old songs in their voices, woven into new melodies. You smile. The past isn't gone, it's just wearing new robes. You sit by the river, watching the water flow. It's the same river that carried the baptism, the same river that at once held sacrifices. It's quiet now, reflective. You toss a sprig of lavender into the current, a nod to both worlds. You're tired, sore, and uncertain, but you've seen transformation. And in this world, that's eternity.
Now, let's slow everything down. You're no longer trudging through brothel corridors or watching steam rise from copper coils. You're not standing beside saints or warlords. You're just here, in the quiet, with the hum of history still echoing softly in your ears.